What's up, guys? Welcome back to Blood, Sweat, and Gear. I'm Scott McNally, and of course, I am here as always with Skip Hill and S2H. Our programming is all brought to you by TrueNutrition.com. You can use our code ADVICES for some additional savings. Skip, I have this is for a little bit later. My shake, it's ready. I've got 2 scoops of Team Skip right here.
Has it been sitting there for 4 days? Because it looks like it's separated.
It's like foaming at the top now. But I
what is that when you take a Guinness and you mix it with something else?
Thing?
That's what it looks like.
This is the Anadrol. I put some Anadrol powder in there, and it separates at the top.
This looks dangerous. I better put my glasses on.
So, guys, anybody who's watching this live, feel free to throw some questions in. Everybody who is watching this live, I know you guys are all of our OG fans, listeners, subscribers, and all that. But if you're watching the recorded version, if you're at YouTube, do us a favor, hit the like button if you enjoy the content. And if you are new here, you haven't subscribed, then please do, because we have several programs coming out each week. We'd love to have you along for all of them. We are going to start out here with a topic, and we are almost completely prepared for this topic. We're calling it 5 exercises that you should be doing. And Skip has prepared 4. And we're going to freeball it. We're going to come up with the 5th one as we go. And then after that, we're going to go to a bunch of listener questions and everything else. So, guys, feel free to throw questions in the feed. And Skip, take it away, man. Where do we start here? What's the first exercise? Well, I guess define for us. What is this? 5 exercises that we should be doing. Are these exercises we currently aren't doing, or what?
Most people aren't doing, but they should be. They're exercises that at one time were far more popular. And, because everything has to be so progressive. And with, machines and, the advancement of not only hammer strength, but all the new leverage machines and things like that, some of these exercises fall by the wayside, and I don't think that they should. Or they get a bad rap, and they're kind of shelved, and, that's old. But yet everybody still wants to squat, get a big old booty, and have adductors that are, 3 times bigger than they need to be. So we said we had 4 of the 5.
We have 4 of the 5.
Number one, the 5th one.
You got the 5th one?
Mm-hmm.
They're not in any particular order, but number 1 being dumbbell flies. And I know some people might be saying, and some of you may say, well, I already do these. Okay, that's fine. But the majority of people tend to look at an exercise like dumbbell flies and think, well, that's not a big mass builder. Why would I want to do it? And continue to pound the same exercises and not progress over time, and then wonder, gosh, scratch their head, wonder, well, gee, what can I do to get my chest to grow more? And an exercise like dumbbell flies, especially being a multi-angled joint where you can hit it from different angles. There's a myriad of angles there, whether it be incline, decline, low incline, high incline, all that good shit. And I think that exercise tends to be, it's more of a 70s type exercise. Don't you guys agree? I mean, it's not something, it's like, well, with machines these days, there's so much variety and so many other things that I could be doing. But dumbbell flies, I think, are highly underrated for size.
Dude, I would say personally, like machine laterals fuck my shoulders up bad. Even like, what's that? What do they call that thing that everybody loves? And I think Arsenal made a new one. They call it is it the Iron Cross?
The one you go like this?
You're standing in front of, and you.
Yeah.
That lateral machine?
I think he's talking about dumbbell
laterals. Okay, I get you.
Yeah.
I think he's talking about dumbbell flies, aren't you?
Yeah, I am. But I'm saying, though, that I do. Oh, you're talking about chest flies. I don't know why I was thinking you're thinking laterals. Okay, yeah. You know what? No, I don't do those. I don't know why I was thinking.
We'll just edit that part out. But it still comes back. It's still the same premise. A lot of people now will go to a side lateral machine if they see it. And it's funny that you bring that up because I don't like it either. They have one down at Iron Temple. They have one at Armbrust Pro Gym, and they're one's in Atlantis. That's the one. I think it's Atlantis at Armbrust Pro, and the other one down at Iron Temple. I'm not sure. I don't like either one of them. I like the gyms.
Dude,
don't get me wrong.
You were saying flies, and I was thinking laterals that whole time. I'm like picturing lateral raises. I'm like, I do those every time I train shoulders.
Right.
Like,
no,
but
dumbbell flies. Yeah.
I don't do dumbbell flies, but you do them? You do them like how often? every chest workout?
One of those things about 4 years ago, and I said, you know what? My chest really hasn't improved much over the last handful of years. I'm going to try to mix things up and change some things. I went back to trying dips, and dips are, for me, they're not happening. They just put my shoulder in a position that isn't very comfortable. And I don't care what anybody says about how it could even be squatting. If squatting is, king of leg development, and you've got that ingrained in your brain like most everybody does, but they're painful, or you just don't feel your quads moving, and you've tried different angles. Sometimes the way that the length of your, basically the space between your knee and your hip, or the knee and the ankle, it can offset that to where it just sometimes isn't good for some people.
Yeah.
But dumbbell flies, what I'm seeing now is the people who are doing the dumbbell flies are doing them more like presses, though. You have to be outside of that 90 degrees. It has to fall out there for the stretch. And so the few people that I do see doing them are kind of using them more as a variation of a dumbbell press, or a wide dumbbell press with a neutral grip versus an actual fly. You have to get outside of that 90-degree angle so that stretch is there, but yet not have your arms too straight, because if they're too straight, then that puts your chest in a pretty, your shoulders in a vulnerable position. Keep in mind that the bicep attaches over the shoulder, so when that arm is straight, if it's damn near straight, that's kind of dangerous.
Yeah, one of our listeners, Jan, had said people in my gym go way too heavy on flies. Arms bend way too much, and it turns into a press. Pretty much exactly what you're saying. Then I don't know, man. I feel like with my shoulder, it doesn't work very well. I do a lot more pec deck personally. I'm not gonna lie. Even at home, I don't do dumbbell flies, and I don't have like a ton of options here. Scott, you're old school. If you were training, which I know, would you be doing dumbbell flies?
The fifth exercise is actually working out that people aren't doing. Yeah, I used to do them. I quit doing them because they hurt my shoulders.
Yeah.
If it's like 30s or 40s or something, but like Skip said, the minute you get up, probably, if I was to get up to like 60s or something, I would start pressing them more than flying them. You get more bend in your elbow, and it become more of a press. And, that's all I have.
Okay. So, Skip, I've seen you dumbbell press some decent weight. I'm going to say, have I seen you press like the 150s, 140s?
I tell you what, if I've pressed the 150s, they were probably not very pretty.
Empty.
But the 140s and the 130s.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I'm 10 pounds off then. It's not. Yeah. That's not too far.
But that's the difference, and I haven't hit them in a while, or haven't hit the 140s anyway. But go ahead.
Yeah, I'm asking you for a reason. So if that's what you're pressing, what are you using for flies?
Well, when I started out, I was in the basement. They were, even when I was pressing heavy, because it was a movement that I wasn't used to. So there's an element of coordination too, and just getting the movement right. But I could fly, good, just outside of 90 degrees, not close to stiff arm. Like today or this last week, if I needed to, I could go 65s. I might be able to go 70s. But another thing with flies is obviously you don't want to be low rep on them. So it's an exercise that if you're going to go heavy on something, go heavy on presses or on bench or dumbbell press, that sort of thing, and keep your reps a little bit higher so that they're more controlled, with the flies. So if I'm up around the 12 rep range, 65s, I could probably walk in at any point and do 65s right around the 12, 15, and they're solid. I don't know if anybody's seen me train, but I'm kind of a stickler, almost OCD, for rep tempo, form. My mechanics are rock solid. They have to be.
We still haven't trained yet.
Nope, not yet.
I'm disappointed in this.
Oh, shit. I'm old. I just start literally choking on spit.
Just like sometimes guns just go off. Sometimes old people just start choking,
Start choking for no reason. 50 years and I can't get the swallow and breathe timing down. We've tried twice, I think?
I think so, yeah.
When I was back in Michigan, and it just hasn't. We're not that close. That's why.
Yeah.
When I'm in Michigan, not very close. But
still 4 hours.
Hopefully we'll be able to do that. one of these. I'll pick up some pointers, take them back to my clients, make money.
Yeah, there you go. Well,
yeah.
All right, let's move on to the next one. What do you got for us next on the list? I knew dumbbell flies is one of them, which I thought were laterals for some reason. I even wrote flies on my list. I wrote flies and I'm thinking laterals. I don't know. Still stuck
Under grip lat pulls or chins for biceps.
Love those. Oh, for biceps.
And I consider it, yeah, for biceps. For biceps, yeah. And it's kind of funny because I like using them as a finisher for buys. Once your buys, look at it this way. When you do narrow grip chins, let's say you're finishing back with a neutral grip and it's relatively narrow, tell me that your biceps don't just blow up to the point where it's almost like, oh my gosh, it's like you feel like you're training biceps. They end up getting so much of a pump. So when you go with that under grip and it's narrow and you stay more upright and you only pull and you kind of pull to the face, it's very, very close. You keep the bar and you pull to your mouth or your chin. Give it a shot. Finish your bicep workout with controlled. You don't have to get the full stretch at the top. In fact, it's not a very natural like movement at the top because your back doesn't want to stretch at the top anyway. So go ahead and you can almost do, to explain it better, almost like a 3/4 reps from the chin to the top. You don't have to have the full stretch because you're not training your back. That's going to be difficult to do if you just train back the day before because your back still has to work. It's much like the comparison is this. Finishing biceps with under grip lat pulls to the chin. It's kind of like finishing triceps with dips or on the hammer dip machine.
Yeah, okay? I like that.
It's a good finisher. It's not something that you want to open with because your back will do a lot of that work and your biceps will be strong. But when your biceps are weaker and they're more fatigued and you're finishing your bicep workout with them, do them and get back to me and tell me that it doesn't just fry the shit out of your buys.
Oh, I got one that I just thought of, kind of related. I'll hold on to it for a minute, but I'll say I thought you were talking about underhanded pull downs, like underhanded just for your back, and I just see a lot of people not doing those. I
would agree with that.
And to me, that's a really good one. And this actually sparks something. I want to ask both you guys about this. So, and here's a great example too of where video can help us, because if we were trying to do this on audio podcast, I would never be able to explain this. But on my pull down, oh man, I could almost just take my computer and turn it around into the gym because I'm looking at my lat pull down right over there. But I've got the mics and stuff hooked up. So on my pull down though, when I pulled down, I used to just pull like right to here. I'd pull like this, okay? And now, I guess for anybody at home who's listening on the audio podcast, I'd pull just down to the top of my chest. And now I'm pulling kind of more in front of me and I'm coming down like this. So the bar comes down to it's in front of me so I can get down to my solar plexus, and I make sure that I touch, like the bottom of my chest, elbows coming back, and then I, bring it back up. And that works really good too for the underhanded because you could really, bring those elbows in tight. What is better to grow your lats? Because I feel like down low.
Yep.
Because I feel like when I used to go up high, all I would feel is like I felt it, but I'd feel it like up in the armpit, and that was it.
Rear delt.
Yeah, probably.
Yeah, a lot of people will classify or categorize that movement that you're talking about as a lower lat type of movement for that reason. Again, it comes back to elbow travel. We're talking about bar and hands, but the reality is the path that the elbows take. Yeah. And because it's an undergrip and I'm assuming that you're going roughly shoulder width, which quite frankly, with all back movements, I think is the best because it provides the best range of motion. Anytime you come inside of your shoulder width or outside, you're limiting the range of motion to some degree. So at the shoulder, with the shoulder width, you're getting the most range of motion for the elbow. And when you're getting the most range of motion for the elbow, then you're getting the best range of motion for that working muscle. Doesn't matter if it's chest flies. We've talked about this before and it's hard to demonstrate, but if you're finishing your pec flies on a machine with your hands like this, but your elbow is way out here, the further you get your hands away from your body, the more the elbows can come together. I've written articles about this, the weenus and the vagina. You want to actually not try to touch your hands together, but the vagina of your elbow, the inside of your elbow, you're trying to touch those together, and that increases the range of motion.
No wonder nobody reads your articles.
Well, sometimes for like S2H, I have to break these things down to the most rudimentary level so that they're understood.
No, I get it.
The weenus and the vagina.
The weenus and the vagina.
Look it up on your own.
Look it up. Weenus and vagina.
I get it.
He's like, I don't know if it's there. Skip might be right. I'm right.
I'm saying 5-year-olds are like, weenus, vagina.
Well, I just explained it, though, in a way that everybody understood what I was saying.
So
Sure
I feel like that's something people aren't doing. I feel like anytime I look at somebody doing a pull down, they're doing them wrong. You know, I don't know. Is it wrong, though? Or it's just, I just feel like, you know what, man? I mean, my back thickness has come up dramatically over the years. Like over the years, I've trained, and you know, I've trained with great bodybuilders, like, you know, freaking pros, and my width hasn't come up the way I wanted it to, but the thickness was crazy. You know, great thickness. I mean, I'm not pro level, but you know, it came up a lot. Whereas the things I would be doing to kind of bring that width out, those like pull downs and stuff, it didn't grow as well. And I think for me, it was the way I was pulling down. I don't know.
And it may have been simply a change that your back wasn't used to. And anytime you create a stimulus that a muscle is not used to, it has to adapt and it has to grow. So, you know, with something like the back, again, getting into multi-angle movements, you know, with whether it be chest or back, there's a multitude of different angles and a multitude of different grips. So anytime you can do something different, I always believe that's where variety plays a big part. We could talk about back for like an hour and a half and then do it, you know, for the next 3 segments, because it can get quite complex and complicated.
I just had another question. I wrote it down to ask you later because I didn't want to take us too far off track, but I do have another one on back, so I'll save it.
Okay.
So what's next then? We've got we got dumbbell flies. We have the pull downs for your biceps.
Yep, sissy squats.
Yeah.
And I need to clarify, because a lot of people will argue this point and say, well, Skip, those aren't technically sissy squats, especially the older demographic, the people in my age group or demographic. I understand that a sissy squat technically is the old school 1980s way or 70s way of doing it. It can go back further than that, where you're using your body weight, you're holding on to one plate, and the other hand, you're holding on to a squat rack or something that doesn't move, and you're kicking your knees out in front of you, and you're rolling up on the balls of your feet. But that's not the sissy squat I'm talking about. Now we have this tiny little sissy squat leg machine that you can stand on that has a pad behind your calf, and in front, it has the rollers, much like you would do a leg extension. And I think with those now, and the original sissy squat is underrated too, but when you have a little machine like that locks you in, the one thing I didn't like about the original sissy squat was I don't think it was hitting both legs equally. Like, it wasn't symmetrical in the sense that if you're holding onto something with one hand and you're holding a plate in your hand with the other, that to me is something's off left to right there. So then you have to tackle trying to hit both of the legs equally as hard with the same stress, and I think it was difficult to do. With the new little sissy squat machines that damn near every gym has these days, you're hitting everything equally left to right, and they're very difficult. Again, it's a finisher. It's not something that you're going to pile weight on and be able to, that's something for the squat rack or hacks or leg presses. But I've been forced to use them with my hip injury, with my rupture, which, by the way, I got 100% clearance yesterday from Dr. Fragiskakis.
Nice.
Did a full assessment on me down at Titan. He was working on some of my clients and some of the members there, and I did get full clearance. So I am excited to be able to get back, but that's a tangent that I need to come back off of. So the point is I've been using these sissy squats because I've been very limited in what I can do for legs for the last 4 or 5 weeks. Yeah. Leg curls, leg extensions, and sissy squats. That's it. Not much hip involvement. Obviously, you have to bend at the hip, but it just loads your quads big time.
Yeah.
arguably more your rectus femoris, much like a leg extension, than your vastus lateralis and medialis. But the point is it hammers the shit out of them. And I think a lot of people don't use them, again, because it's a body weight type exercise, or maybe holding on to, a couple small dumbbells at the same time, which is actually pretty impressive once you start to add weight. Because if you're doing them correctly and your upper body is upright, they are brutal.
Yeah, I like
how you do it. You know how you do it without having to use one arm and a plate in one hand? You use chains.
Yeah.
And you do two-hand hold.
Okay. Fair enough. Yep.
Yeah, it's good. I like chains.
Yep. And you feel tougher.
Yeah.
You're doing a sissy squat with chains around your neck.
Anytime we work chains into it, I don't care what it. I've seen people even doing flies with heavy chains and then hooking a handle on the end of them. Yep.
Chains got a lot of use.
Yeah, I got a couple of 45-pound chains here. I need to shoot more Instagram videos with.
Let's all agree that they are a giant, massive inconvenience and not very practical, though.
Oh, they're totally not practical.
Yeah. Oh my God.
But they're great.
Good for building your bench.
Yeah.
Chain your bar, especially if you have trouble locking out, because as you press out, the chain gets longer, it gets heavier.
Or
from the floor up.
If you have issues with your shoulder, in that bottom range is a problem. Bands, but I mean, also that bar is deloading, as you lower it. Or issues with your lower back on squats. I use my chains on squats. I've always liked them. But yeah, I think if you were to pick one or the other, I think bands are a little bit more practical. Also, I have chains here, but it's not like I'm going to take them with me, you know what I mean, to the gym.
Right. Yep.
So there's
the other thing I don't like.
Drag them around with you.
Yeah.
The other thing I don't like about chains and bands, and I wonder if any of the viewers feel the same way, I don't like how they will not fall the same way for every rep. I don't like that. And that's another reason that, and again, I don't want to get off on a tangent, but those little bouncy bars that everybody wants to use. And I call them that. Maybe I shouldn't do that because that sounds kind of condescending.
What do you mean,
like that bamboo, bamboo shaky bar. That to me it makes me cringe every time I see them. There's no way I'm going to go near them, and I'm not going to let a client go near them. That's just me. I'm not saying that they're wrong or bad. I'm saying I don't like them because I think that the potential there for injury is far superior to a regular bar.
I can see that. Yeah. I mean, I'm sure we could find people to argue that too. Any power lifters listening right now are probably like,
what do you mean your chains don't fall evenly?
Well, they can't fall the same way on every rep.
Yeah, they can. You have to coil them at the bottom on the floor. So you coil them and turn them in, and they'll go up level and come back down level.
Okay, well, they can't fall the exact same way every time. It's relatively random. And if you have to coil them and there's a system for making them fall, that's one more thing that makes them impractical.
Scott, you're off center, by the way. I only see half your face.
Well, I'm getting comfortable.
Okay.
Because Skip was going on, so I had to lean back in my chair.
All right, let's keep this thing rolling. So we had the sissy squat next. We've got two more. We still have to come up with one. So what's the last official one on the list before we start inventing stuff?
I don't know. I made the list before, and honestly, off the top of my head, what was it? What was the other one?
Behind the neck press.
Yeah, behind the neck press. Because I've got the fifth one. It just took me since we pushed the button to come up with it, but I'll leave the fifth one out, and I'll go with the behind the neck press. I think a lot of people, the behind the neck press started to fall out of favor when people started saying and pointing out that it can put the shoulder in a vulnerable position. It's not a natural movement. The argument was, how many times in your life would you press something behind your neck? You would, if you're putting a box up on a shelf, you wouldn't press it in that fashion. You would press it from your chest up and overhead. If done correctly, and there is flexibility, you could not have the flexibility. I want to say that right out of the gate. If you're tight through your shoulders and taking the bar behind your neck, or behind your head rather, is uncomfortable, then don't force it. But take that as a sign that you have poor flexibility throughout your shoulders. Okay, that's number one. Number two, in doing this movement, I think it's better to do it on a Smith machine because it's a fixed movement. So it's not going to get away from you. It's not going to go too far back or too far forward, that sort of thing. But the bar shouldn't come down any lower than the base of the skull or the back of the skull. What that does is once you start to push the upper arm below parallel to the floor, yeah, you could potentially get yourself in a vulnerable position with your shoulder joint. But if that upper arm is just slightly below parallel to the floor, and you press up overhead, and locking out is important, because I want to point out too that behind the neck presses, everybody thinks these are primarily front delt or anterior delt movements, but they're not. If done correctly, it's that you're getting more movement or more work out of the side delt, and the front and rears are more considered stabilizers. And if it doesn't add up and you think that doesn't make any sense, just do them the way I'm telling you, to full lockout. Not partial, but full lockout, and tell me that your side delts don't blow up with blood, and tell me whether your anterior, if you're feeling your anterior delts burn like they would on a front delt press. And unless you're doing something fucked up, I'm right.
All right. Last one, and then we'll move on to our listener questions. What's the last one you came up with for us?
Oh, you want me to give it? You want me to put
it
out
do.
there?
Since you already came up with it, I could probably think of something, but I'm pretty limited in the exercises I do. There's nothing. I can't think of a single thing that I do that's like, damn, nobody does this, but they should be. Honestly, I really don't.
This one's borderline. More people do this fifth exercise than the other four, but they don't understand, or they may not understand how important this movement is for back development, and see it more like, oh, it's really not like a mass builder, especially at higher reps, that sort of thing. And that is dumbbell pullovers. I would say, I say dumbbell pullovers, but I'll say this. Machine pullovers are great if you have the right machine. A lot of machines these days, and Hammer Strength makes both kind, they don't give you the stretch that you really need for this movement. Hammer Strength makes a pullover machine like Armbrust Pro Gym has, where you have to step on the lever to bring it up.
I like that.
Then you know you're good. The old Nautilus pullover was great. We have one in Iron Temple down in Miami, and it's awesome.
Like the old, is it like chain driven?
It's chain driven, but it's kind of a Generation 2 Nautilus. It's not the first one that looked like the giant thing that was like an astronaut pullover.
Yeah. We have one of those here at Royal Oak Gym, and then Ron Partlow just bought one for his gym up in Vancouver, which I love those, man.
Michigan must have a lot of them, because Reps Gym in Plainwell, tiny little gym or tiny little city between Kalamazoo and Grand Rapids, has the old school one as well. There's a lot of drag because it's chain driven, but it's just awesome the way that it was made. It just, Nautilus had it right years and years ago mechanically. But,
I wish somebody would replicate that with the chains.
Exactly.
Dude, I'd spend extra, you know what I mean? Like, it would have to be an expensive piece. You know what I mean?
The Hammer Strength one, though, at Armbrust Pro Gym with the foot lever, it is pretty damn good. It's about as close as you can get to the original Nautilus, and there's no drag because it's plate loaded.
Oh, yeah.
But the Hammer Strength also makes the other dumbbell or other machine pullover that doesn't have the foot lever, and the stretch just, it isn't there. And if you don't have the stretch, I think the pullover is useless. I think the what you get out of it diminishes significantly, to the point where we have one at my current home gym, and I don't use. I've used it twice just to see if I could try to make it work to get a better stretch, and because it doesn't have that foot lever, it doesn't work. But dumbbell pullovers are great if they're done correctly for back width.
I like dumbbell pullovers. I did those because training with Shelby. John Meadows had those like in every plan, basically. Like every single workout ended. And because, with mountain dog training, there's, different elements to the training, and that last element being a stretch. And so he would always have those in, and that would be the focus, was the stretch. I think that they really do make a difference. I will tell you this, though. I feel like I loaded my triceps with that too. That I feel like my triceps grew from back day because of the dumbbell pullover.
Because you're bending your elbows a lot.
I was just going to say, you're doing them wrong. That's why. And I drive this into the heads of my clients when I show them how to do it. If you go too heavy on it and that dumbbell ends up behind your head, there's too much movement at the elbow. It should be not stiff arm, but it should be pretty close to it. Go stiff arm first with a lightweight, and then when you're stiff arm, barely bend your elbow, and that's where you want it to be. I tell my clients, when you're lying down, push the dumbbell up over your head in the stretch position as far as is comfortable. That way it keeps them from letting that dumbbell come down and bend at the elbow more behind their head, because you will. And why do the triceps, why do you feel them? Because the long head of the tricep attaches at the scapula.
Yeah.
So there's no way around it. You're not going to eliminate the tricep work because it's a stabilizer, if nothing else. Even if you don't, you keep that slight bend in your elbow, but you don't move it from there, you still have it stabilizing.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I'm not complaining. You know what I mean? It was a limiting factor though, if early on, and I'd be like, oh man, my triceps are fatiguing. You have to play with it, a little bit, which I don't think I had to do that so much with I've also done like the cable pullover. You can use a rope attachment. I like that one. One of our listeners threw in Jan. He says, I always thought that it was a back exercise, but I've heard some people say it's a chest exercise.
Oh, I love that.
I've never had it work for my chest.
No, I had a client ask me that the other day, and I'm still surprised that there are people that will consider it a chest movement. And sometimes those people who use it as a chest movement on rare occasions are well-known pros with Olympia titles behind them. And it's awful hard to talk a client out of something that someone said who is ginormous and has Mr. Olympia in their title. But the only way that you could do that mechanically to make your chest really is the elbows have to be flared real wide. You do want to keep the elbows in as comfortably close together as possible to hit the back more, because as they flare out, you'll get more pec minor involvement. If you train back the day after chest, you're probably going to feel your chest a little bit more because it'll be sore. The pec minor still has to work in a pullover. But to say it's a prime mover or that it's taking the brunt of the exercise, I don't see that as even being close.
Yeah, you probably hit your triceps too, Scott, because when you bring the dumbbell back over, you hold it up over your chest with your triceps instead of concentrating on your lats.
Yeah, we would actually we would stop when you'd feel it coming off of the lats. Bring it up, and as you could feel, and you could feel it too as you're bringing that weight up, you can feel it coming off of the lat, and as at that shift, you just go right back down into the negative. So. Yeah.
And one more thing that I'll add, if you're going to do dumbbell pullovers on a bench, two actually, don't do them cross bench. Do them lying the full length of the bench.
Yes.
The main reason is one side could be higher or lower than the other. Plus, you don't want your hips below your shoulders. It puts your shoulders in a terrible, terrible position. And this way, if you're on long ways on a bench, your hips cannot be lower than your shoulders. There's no way to do that. Number two is the amount of weight. If a client comes to me and says they're doing 120-pound dumbbell pullovers, right away I'm thinking, that's probably more of a tricep extension than it is a back movement. And it just came back to me. The other thing is this, it's important. At the top, when you're holding the dumbbell over your chest and you're going back in, you want to basically in your mind, or not just in your mind, but physically too, be doing a lat spread. Before you don't want your shoulder blades retracted very much. You want them wide and open.
Yeah, that makes sense. Scott, anything you want to throw in here on exercises people should be doing but aren't before we move on to our listener questions?
No. Good.
And I just want to point out too, Jan did not hit the fast forward button because he responded a couple times online. So Jan,
it's not him.
We did have, who was that? Matt Marshall suggested Kegels as an exercise that everybody should be doing. Yeah, there we go.
Well played, Matt. Well played.
No kidding. All right. Well, for everybody who is watching the YouTube, we're going to go to a quick commercial break. And then when we come back, we will get right into listener questions. Hey, what's going on, guys? Thanks for watching another podcast here at Think Big Bodybuilding Media, and thank you to our great sponsor, TrueNutrition.com, for making this all possible. TrueNutrition.com is owned by Dante Trudell, the creator of DC Training. He wanted to create a supplement company that offered high-quality, third-party tested supplements at a fair price. High-quality protein powders, just about every type you could think of, huge variety of flavors, plus health and performance supplements. Check them out, TrueNutrition.com. And hey, if you use our code ADVICES, you directly support our podcasting. Thanks, guys. Let's get back to the program.
Jump back in.
Coach last week.
All right, guys, we are back. Blood, Sweat, and Gear with Skip Hill and S2H. I'm excited because we're talking training, and sometimes when we talk training, I feel like we all get really excited about training talk. Versus, like, I know that both of you roll your eyes when we get asked questions about trend, for instance, because you guys did PED radio for a few years before we even got started. We've done this show for 4 years, I think now, something like that. It's a long time. It's a lot of trend questions. Yeah.
We're coming up on our 100th episode here soon.
Yeah. And we only do
it. Are we on now?
95, 6?
94, something like that.
94?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well,
and we only do this every other week, so that's been 200 weeks. It's a long time.
I've been doing it. I started it when I was 14. So
yeah. Yes.
Yes, that's wait a minute. So that's 26 episodes a year.
Yeah, but we haven't done one. We've missed a few too. There is that, you know.
I've missed a few. I apologize to my fan base of 3 people.
All right, well, let's get to our listener questions. Anybody who wants to ask any questions, go ahead, throw them up in the live feed here. Okay, this is like coaching based. So we have a lot of people that watch that are bodybuilders, fitness people, but they're also coaching people too. This is from Travis James. Would love Skip's insight on exercise. Oh, wait, no, this isn't it. Yeah. Insight and experience on this. Best ways of handling rude or slightly arrogant and ungrateful clients. Bite your tongue or take their money to avoid conflict, or move them on.
That's a good question. I'll tell you what. I think it's going to be different based on the trainer and where they are. Here's an example. If you just started out, and I'll use myself as an example. When I first started out, I put up with a lot of shit that I would bitch at my wife about and be like, oh my God, I want to cut this motherfucker loose so bad. But these rotten ass kids need to eat and they need diapers. So I'm like, fuck. Yeah. But now, hit the fucking road. Your money will be back in your PayPal account before I even tell you that I'm done. It's non-negotiable at that point because I'm a pretty patient guy. I fancy myself relatively easy to work with. I have a good rapport with my clients. I'm not like I don't blow up about things. I've been online, not only training people online, but online long enough that I don't hit the send button until, number one, I'm not going to respond to anybody, whether it's after an article that I've written and I'm being trolled, or a client who's upset with me, until I can calm down if I am irritated and respond without emoting, basically. And it's difficult to do sometimes, but when I hit the send button, I'm good with it. I have no regret. What did it say? Regrets or
regrets.
Regrets. But I'm in a position where I don't have to worry about that either. So it depends on where you are and, how much of a pain in the ass is this person? I mean, is it something you can work through? Is it something you've tried to work through? Have you been, open and honest, or have you just been taking their shit? And if you're taking their shit and you set that precedence, well, you're probably going to have to continue to take that shit. There are some clients that I have said, okay, look, this is where we are. We have to get something figured out. We can't. Neither one of us can continue, to go like this. It doesn't happen very often, but it does happen. And sometimes you have a good heart to heart. Everything is fine. Yeah. A lot of times, what they do is they'll come back and they'll say, you know what, my bad. This is what's going on. And then you have that connection with them where you go, oh shit, they just confided in you that, they're arguing. COVID is a good example. I mean, people have been on edge, and a lot of people still are on edge, and they're reacting so much more impulsively than they would in years past.
Yeah.
So they could be going through a divorce. They could be having problems with their kids. They could be having financial problems. There are underlying, in working with kids for all the years that I did, all behavior has meaning, and it may sound kind of soft and snowflakey and that sort of thing, whatever you want to call it. But all behavior has meaning. There's a reason for it. It may not even necessarily be you. So talking about it, figure it out. If you can't move through it, or you just simply don't want to because you've been battling with it, then cut them loose. Just cut them loose.
Yeah. I'd like to push this one further because we could get into like telling stories, but I think it would be we should probably get to some like actual bodybuilding stuff. You know what I mean?
Okay.
Yeah. Jan just asked a question. He threw this up in the feed.
Damn, he's still there.
He's on fire today too. Yeah.
He must be new.
Yeah. With a few pros pulling out of shows recently, how hard are they pushing their health competing these days? I don't know. He might be talking about Fuad. He might be talking about Fuad because he just pulled out. And I know he just did. I watched his podcast where he was talking about he's had kidney stuff going on, and it looks like prepping, stressed that further. So he pulled out. But he already had a bunch of stuff going on, going into this. And I don't know what he did recently, but I believe, don't quote me on this, I believe he pushed stuff harder in the past. I don't know. Are people, I don't know of a lot of pros that are pulling out for health reasons. No,
I think, not that this is what happened to Fuad, but, kidney problems are fairly prevalent in bodybuilding. And, diuretics don't help your kidneys. You don't need them, so people I've seen with kidney problems, people will blame other stuff, but generally it's you'll find somebody with kidney problems, they'll sometimes have excessive diuretic use. And that's not just at showtime. It's year round.
Dude, I knew a guy at my gym. Actually, I did an interview with him, brought him on the show. I did a podcast. We talked about his situation, but he never really ran a lot of gear. He'd run like 2 cc's of Sustanon for his off season, and then in the summertime he'd run a little bit less than that, and then he'd add in a little bit of Tren, and it wasn't even a lot. It'd be like, maybe 200 milligrams of Tren, something like that. But he never knew anything about AIs. So he told me, and I put this together later because he told me, he was like, yeah, in the summertime I always use a little bit of a diuretic every day just to keep the water down. And that's why when I'm shredding up, I can look hard. And I was like, dude, and I was like, what about a Rimidex? What about, he's like, no, he did this. And so eventually though, he changed that. But anyway, he wanted to get into the police, and he went to do training and stuff. And they, he did a physical to get into the police departments and stuff. And, they found out he had kidney damage. He had like 75% of his kidneys were destroyed. He had to come off.
Oh, shit.
Yeah, it was like 75, 80%. Like he had basically killed his kidneys. And I think it was because of the diuretics. He was like, they blamed the steroids. They're like, yeah, these steroids are killing you, I don't know.
Hypertension too.
Yeah, and that's where I was going to go. Look, I'm not going to say that diuretic use doesn't exacerbate.
Yeah, that was a rare case, I think. That one. You know what I mean?
I think it gets diuretics get blamed, I think, for more kidney problems than they actually cause. But at the same time, especially in bodybuilding, but at the same time, look, if you've got your guys, the 212 guys do this a lot. They compete show after show, and they might do, 3, 4, 5 shows over the course of, 5 months. That's rough. In men's bodybuilding, the extremes that are taken, even if you're conservative, you're taking a lot of orals for a long period of time where you're on them, off them, on them, off them, on them, off them. You're going back and forth. The diuretic use and everything else, those things can certainly exacerbate kidney issues. But I really think that the mild hypertension is more of a culprit, because even if you're not doing a ton of gear, but your blood pressure is high because you carry a lot of size, these guys who get real big in the off season, and they've done this for years, I think that alone is horrible, whether you factor in the amount of steroids that they're using, diuretic use, or anything else. They're already asking for problems with higher blood pressure. And diuretic use alone, even daily diuretic use of hydrochlorothiazide, it is used to bring down blood pressure too, if the dosing is right and it's the right compound to be used for that particular person that's mildly hypertensive. So I don't know. I mean, it's easy to say that, your client, Scott, had those problems.
Not my client, just a bro in the gym.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay, sorry. But that it was exacerbated by the diuretic use, but I don't know if he does either, or the doctors know if that's really what the issue is. He could have been mildly hypertensive for a long time, and over time, hypertension, people don't take it serious. They don't give it it is slowly, it's like fast food on your heart. Over time, it's slowly killing you, basically, but it's killing your kidneys.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, one thing with hydrochlorothiazide is it for hypertension, because I have an issue where I'm prescribed a medication that has it in it. So when your arteries and your kidneys are narrowed, okay, so everything's getting blocked up. Think of a dam, okay. The dam's not open, everything's not flushing through properly. So the hydrochlorothiazide opens those arteries to allow steady, normal flow through the kidneys and filtering. If you have normal kidney function and you're using a hydrochlorothiazide or something of that effect on a regular basis, you're actually opening the dam up more. You're letting the water, everything come through too quickly. And what happens there is that's where you can cause kidney damage, because it's stretching those arteries too far open, and it's all I can use is a dam theory. So you got little holes, and the holes start getting bigger and bigger, and then your flow and your filtering to the kidneys becomes too excessive. And that's where a lot of people run into kidney problems when they use diuretics a lot. And like Scott said, the people I've seen that have problems with them, it's generally they live in warmer climates. They probably go to the beach or whatever, or the pool a lot, and they have their shirt off. So they like to take diuretics to get that water off their body, to look tighter, just look drier at the pool. And you're also out in the sun, so you're also dehydrating yourself with the sun and the elements and the heat. And that's where I've seen people that have problems with kidneys. Mostly it's in warmer climates too. So
now coming back to the original question, if pros these days are, basically beating themselves up more internally than before, yes and no. I mean, some people do and some people don't. We can't make a blanket statement about all pros, because some are just more abusive than others. And, there's a lot of factors there. There's personality, issues and concerns, whether you have all your eggs in one basket. I mean, what does bodybuilding mean to you? And is it the only thing you have? Do you feel, a lot of people feel like how well they do as a bodybuilder, especially when they're a pro or they're trying to turn pro, directly affects their revenue stream in the industry, because the large majority of people who are trying to turn pro are training people. So, and they're on Instagram, and they have to be in shape all the time. So there's just a myriad of factors there. And I don't think that, I wouldn't be comfortable making the statement that, yes, it's worse than it was before. I would like to think that it's not as bad, because I think that we're in this phase now where people tend to take less shit than they need to, or than they should, or that they feel they should, than they did, say, 10 years ago. But not everybody does that.
Yeah.
And bodybuilding generally tends to attract people that are kind of obsessive, compulsive,
right?
Maybe a little bit self-absorbed sometimes. Not everybody. I don't want to generalize everybody in one pile, but if I think back to over the years, all the people I know that have had health problems, vast majority of them were excessive users, and they felt like, I've got to take all this to look. I have to look this good all the time, and I have to keep getting better. And I'm what's it called when you're I guess just a little self-conscious sometimes. Yeah, dysmorphia, body dysmorphia. That's exactly the word.
Yeah.
Called, Skip.
Thank you.
So I can't really think of over this long time, years, decades of people that I've had held. I mean, I've been in the same boat. I got in a boat one time where I thought, man, you just had to take everything under the sun and keep going, because that's why you stayed pumped, full, vascular, blah blah blah. And then you realize, man, this isn't probably the best thing. And hypertension. I had a lot of problem with hypertension. Even in good shape, I had hypertension, and so yeah, it was a concern. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. All right, let's move on from this one. We have a question about knee sleeves and elbow wraps. I brought some things to demonstrate here with. Check this out.
I like this demonstrations.
Do these look familiar, Scott?
Oh yeah.
Scott sent these to me, and I've got this one.
They should look familiar to him then.
And I got these. So the question is, what's your take on knee and elbow wraps? When would you start using them, and any reason why they should not be used?
Wraps or sleeves? Because, I mean, you've got sleeves, and I know the question was wraps. So.
Well, I think he just
the
means...
other one's a wrap sleeve combo.
Yeah, I think he just means, just in general, support.
Well, you want it? Take it, S2H.
Okay.
I got some stuff, too. That's why
I'm going to approach this from kind of two angles. One is, I've always been if you're going to wear a belt, always wear a belt guy. And I kind of take that stance with sleeves. And I'm talking about someone who doesn't have an injury. Sleeves, knee wraps and stuff. If you're going to wear them, wear them. If you're not, don't. The exception would be power lifters who, someone who benches 600 pounds at 135 to warm up, they're probably not going to put sleeves and wraps on. But as the weight gets to a point where, they're starting to get in that 4 rep range or 5 or 6, it helps, because in powerlifting, a lot of times you're using sleeves and wraps to increase your lifts. It's giving you more support in the joint, and you're able to lift more. For bodybuilding, I usually tell people, if you're going to wear them, wear them. If you're not, don't. Don't bounce around, because let's say I go to the gym, I'm going to do squats, and I wear a belt all the time, and I forget my belt, or I forget to put it on. You're more likely to get injured if you're bouncing back and forth between belt, squat, any kind of support item. So if you're going to wear it, wear it. If you're not, not.
I can't disagree with that.
Can I split it into 2 categories for you guys? Because that's why I brought these. I just bought these. These are what I'm using right now, and these are like super thin. Like, this is not supportive. This is just keeping my knee warm. Now these, I tore one of them, so I only have one left. The TK bands from Tommy Kono. These were just like a thick neoprene. When my knees had issues, these kept my knees so warm. But they don't give you any kind of bounce. Like these things, this thing is going to like increase my lifts, Right.
That's a powerlifting.
Yeah,
brace.
it's too much for me. You know how often I wear these, or never? Also, these don't really fit. I can't get them over my calves. No.
See, I don't consider those sleeves, though.
They don't fit 25-inch calves.
Yeah. I don't consider those sleeves, though, because of the added... They're adding the wrap there. You're adding that support. But that's a good question. The neoprene, I think, is better for warmth. And you're right. You're not going to get that as much compression out of it. So there are different levels of compression, especially when you use something, use a good quality wrap or sleeve, like say from Elite FTS.
Yes.
I didn't have mine to show you right now or show the viewers, but I wanted to make sure I got that in there because they make quality shit. So
and tell them Skip sent you if you shop there somehow.
That's absolutely true. So tell David Tracy that Skip sent you. I need all the brownie points I can get right now. But I'm a big believer in both. I don't use wraps as much as I use sleeves, but I won't train legs with my knees without sleeves. I just won't. I like a combination of both, to be honest with you. It may not be neoprene, but I want to make sure that I am getting some warmth, because compression in and of itself will give you a little bit of warmth, not as much as neoprene. And neoprene's kind of funny, because once you get it on and you start sweating, good luck getting them sons of bitches off if they fit the way they're supposed to. Yeah. They're like glued to your leg. You literally have to roll them down inside out to get them off, and even then they're a giant pain in the ass. Yeah. And I've tried them over my sweats. bearskin, everything else. Bearskin, I think, is better because they don't tend to move as much, and but they're easier to get on and off. If you have to take them on and off in between sets, put them on over compression tights or sweats, because then you can get them up and down. I think that the best scenario is they're as tight as you can get them to be able to leave them on between sets, but not uncomfortable, because if you have to take them off, then they could be too tight. And getting the sizing right, let me tell you, it is a bitch, because even when I get my sleeves, if I change the type of sleeve, I'll get 2 or 3 of them, because damn it if they never show up and they're exactly the fit that I'm looking for, and I end up having to send them back.
Yeah.
So what I do is I'll get 2 or 3 of them because they're not very expensive, and then I will give away the ones that don't fit to people at the gym. It's kind of like I'm Oprah when I walk into the gym sometimes. You get some knee sleeves. You get some knee sleeves.
So
that's what Oprah does.
So what about actually, let's talk going to wraps. Let's go to like actual hardcore, like, knee wraps that you would use. Like, I mean, I've even seen, there's even different qualities of those. Like if you go to Elite, even sleeves, like they have powerlifting sleeves that have like a lot of bounce to them, And what about like the actual hardcore powerlifting knee wraps? Is there a place for those in bodybuilding?
The ones
really
that
heavy.
Yeah, exactly. But the ones that don't stretch, and I wonder what S2H thinks about this. I've tried the ones that literally,
it's like a cast.
I swear it's like they don't fucking stretch, man. And I hate them. They're painful.
Yeah.
They don't. I want the ones that will be able to give. They're very stretchy, so they're kind of like what power lifters or Elite FTS considers more entry level. But I think that type of wrap is better for bodybuilders than it is when you get into the ones that just don't give very much. I can't even imagine that pain when you're in the hole, because you're literally fighting that material that doesn't want to give. God damn, man. And they don't wrap for shit. You got to get them things so freaking long. So I like more of the entry level, the ones that you can literally take and you can stretch them, not the ones that you go like this. You're like, oh my God, that motherfucker doesn't even move.
Yeah.
So
for knee wraps, I like the old Harbingers, the ones that you can move a little bit, and the thing about knee wraps is you got to wrap them right direction.
Yeah.
Everyone's a little different. I always liked my, the kneecap slightly exposed.
Okay. That's how I am as well.
And then I would start to wrap high on the calf, low on the hamstring, but then bring the last like 3 wraps behind my knee, because it causes a wedge when you squat. And so there's some tricks to it to give yourself more support and a little more pop out of the hole. But I would say the ones that Skip's talking about, the really hard ones, I never liked those. I mean, I use those Harbingers, the ones that have the pads in them, but those are elbow and wrist wraps, and they're a little different. But on the knees, I like the ones that, I don't want to call them ace bandages, but they got a little more play in them. And they're thinner.
And I do like them for the elbow. I think sleeves for the elbow, I use them quite a bit. Another thing that I've done too, and this may help people, but I use them primarily for warmth first, and then support second when it comes to the elbow. And another thing that I've done too that may help other people is because I can't go in and just start training triceps cold. But it'll take me half of my tricep workout to actually get my elbows to the point that, okay, they feel warm and I don't feel that they're vulnerable now. So I train biceps first for that reason. And then when I get to triceps, then they're relatively warm from the blood being in that area, and it takes 2 or 3 sets of warm-ups, and I can go straight into shit that otherwise I can't go into if I just walk into the gym and start doing triceps. But I do think elbow sleeves are great. I've taken my knee sleeves and used them as elbow sleeves because my forearms are a little bit bigger than the average person. I always said if I could get my everything else to be in the same condition and the same size from, like development from a like a ratio standpoint as my forearms and my calves, I'd be a bad motherfucker, but I don't have that. So, but they do. My knee wraps work great for elbow wraps, and you got to be careful too, because if you're using neoprene, using two hands to get them up your legs, to get them on your knees, no problem. Getting them on your elbows or getting them up to your elbows by yourself, good luck. That's never going to happen.
Well, you can pull them on backward, inside out.
Yes.
You pull what would be the bottom up, and then you wrap it over the top. Like if you got calves like Scott,
that's what I have to do.
Sleeves you can get over your calves.
Yeah, I put them on upside down and backwards, and then I flip
and
them
then pull them up over.
Yeah. But with these I don't, because these are like super elasticy. So that's the only thing I use knee sleeves for now, is just to keep my knees warm. And these things are so absolutely thin. These were $15, and that's all they're there for, is just for like a little bit of added warmth. I mean, they're like, I can't explain how super thin they are, but that's all I want nowadays. I used to depend on sleeves. I had the TK bands, and then after that, after the one ripped, I had a pair from they called them Iron Rebel Sport, because they had the Sport, and then they had like the hardcore powerlifting ones that were more intense. And then I wore those religiously for every leg workout. I wouldn't leave them. I wouldn't forget them. Either that or then I wouldn't train legs. And then I left them in a crazy girl's car in Portland and got on a plane as quick as I could. And I never wore.
Names, we don't know who that is.
And I never wore. She still may have them. I don't know. But I left them in the car, and they're there along with a belt too. You can keep the belt, Lindsay. And now she's
probably got them all laid out next to candles and a picture of you.
I don't think so, but nonetheless, though, I got home.
I'll text her and find out.
I got home and I was like, holy shit. What am I going to do without my knee sleeves, And then guess what? I started training and eventually I got used to it, and I've been good ever since. And I don't want to go to anything because I don't need it. I don't want to put anything on them that's like too resistant, because I don't want to depend on them if I don't have to, I guess,
Right, exactly.
I mean, those are like just little warm-up sleeves almost that you have. You should wear leg warmers like Richard Simmons.
Yes.
On your calves. You look cool.
The other thing, though, too, that I think the viewers need to know is if you're going to wear them, let's say you have a bad knee, do not wear them on one knee only. Oh, come on now. Even if you have a good knee, just use both of them. You don't want to give support on one side and not the other, because everything starts at the foot and the ankle, and it goes to the knee, and then it goes to the lower back. And I'm telling you, you're asking for problems down the line if that's the case.
And your good knee will become your bad knee.
Exactly. Yeah. Exactly.
All right. What else do we have here? Go to an insulin question from Matt. He says, insulin timing, how not to get fat. What are the best nutrients to take in while using insulin? Matt's my client now, so he's a new client. He's not using insulin, right, Matt? Just making sure. Just making sure.
What kind of insulin?
Oh, that's funny. His name when he asked the question was, "This is not Matt, Scott's client."
This is not Matt that knows not Scott.
Yeah, what like Scott was saying, does it matter what type of? I mean, I guess it depends on when he's taking it, but I mean, nutrients. What does he mean by nutrients? I mean, obviously you got to have your carbs, and if you're taking it pre-workout, then it's going to be a little bit different. Look, if you don't want to get fat, don't use insulin. There's number one.
Don't take a lot of insulin and eat a lot too much with it.
Yeah, but if you have a propensity to be more of an endo, and you store fat easily, you have to be much more careful than the ectomeso guy who stays relatively lean and may have to push a ton of calories anyway just to push his weight up. So it depends on the timing before and after. I mean, I've said numerous times that there are a lot of people, including myself, who got fat using post-workout insulin, but when I moved it to pre-workout, it was great. And I didn't gain body fat that way. So it depends on the timing too. It depends on dosage, depends on the rest of your diet. I mean, I hate to say this again, and I know they hate this but there's so many variables that answering that question is incredibly difficult to do.
Well, how about this?
I would say in general, one of the things that people get fat on insulin on is they just take in way too many carbs. They're trying to cover the insulin like excessively.
Yeah.
They think, I'm okay. I need to have this many grams per IUs or whatever, and then they just get concerned that they're going to go hypo or something's going to happen, and they start just pouring carbs on top of it, and that's usually how you get fat on insulin.
Yeah. What about now? If you go back to the boards, they always said don't use dietary fats while you're on the insulin. You're just going to shuttle those dietary fats into fat storage. Now, I believe I've heard it said that, yeah, technically you can. So there is some truth to that. But in my experience, I didn't get any fatter. In fact, if I made sure that I took all the dietary fats, I kept them very low, I had a hard time growing because I didn't have enough fats in my diet, and I needed that because I'm not so much anymore. Like, my body has really changed in the last 5 years, but I used to be like a really like hard gainer, you know? And if I didn't have those fats, like even with the insulin, I'm like still getting leaner every week.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a coach that some people would know that I know that this is several years ago. Maybe I helped him tool around with this protocol, but using fats instead of carbs
Is it Milos?
to load on insulin, and then also using branch chain essential amino acids to do it. And at first I was like, the fat thing, I kind of like, okay, I can see that. The other one, I was like, but actually he figured it out to where it actually, either way, it worked pretty good. But the thing is, if you have a bunch of carbs in your diet, it's not going to work. So, and I also think, from what I saw, if you are a person that struggles with, maybe higher blood glucose levels naturally, you start dicing down a little bit of a slippery slope. But it actually worked okay. And this is quite a few years ago, but maybe somebody that looked like me was his test dummy. And I would say it's more doable than you think it would be. But if you have a lot of fat and you have a lot of carbs, then you're just going down the same road as even taking a lot more carbs. Gotcha. A lot of times.
Okay.
Yeah, I've said for years that the relationship between insulin and fat intake is highly overrated. Highly overrated in the sense that, oh my God, you just can't have any fat in there. You're going to get fat. I've never once myself personally seen that happen. Now, I haven't loaded up on fats, but at the same time, it's kind of like skip loading with adding the fat in with the carbs. Everybody freaks out and says, oh my gosh, that's going to make you fat. It just doesn't work that way. I think really it's hard to explain because I don't know how to explain it on the cellular level, why it doesn't pan out that you store body fat as fat or are more likely to, or where that even came from. But if you have fat instead of carbs, obviously carbs are what your body is looking for to balance or to control or counter, I guess is a better word, the insulin. So you do have to have enough carbs. I mean, that's just those two work together. But the added fat being stored, I've just shown over and over so many fucking times that added fat doesn't do that. And when you're talking about adding fat you're actually talking about the window of time.
Yeah.
You're not talking about like earlier in the day or later in the day. And I have not seen anything that says you're going to get fat and store added you'll store added calories just like anybody else will. But no, have not seen that. Now, I'm not telling people to load up. I don't want anybody to think I'm giving the implication that you need to load up on fat.
Yeah.
All I'm saying is I think it is just overrated in the sense that you don't have to be like, oh my God, maybe I had 10 grams of fat too much that I wasn't supposed to do. Now, no, it doesn't work that way. It doesn't do that.
Yeah. Yeah, so he's asking insulin timing, how to not get fat, what are the best nutrients to take in. I think the insulin timing, so back to that, and you guys have said this, every time we've talked about this, I think it's always been too, people were probably getting fatter in the days when people were using insulin every day, versus intermittently.
Yeah, they were using Humalog, they were using Humulin R during the day, and they were using Lantus, and they had this big pile of insulin, different types of insulin. That was probably problematic.
Well, and not only that too, but thinking, well, I got it. The more the better.
Yeah.
Insulin doesn't. That's not how it works. it shouldn't be looked at like that. It's not, well, I've tolerated this, so now I can go higher. I've tolerated that, so now I can go higher. You don't need a shit ton of insulin. So coming back to the question of him saying what the best timing is and things like, you're less likely to get fat if you use it pre-workout. You're less likely to get fat if you're using it with growth hormone. You're less likely to get fat if you don't stick with that archaic or antiquated approach of X amount of carbs, that X amount of carbs per unit of insulin. That was so overkill. I mean, you could take 3 or 4 units of insulin and your body should be able to cover that even if you're fasted. You don't need carbs for 3 or 4, typically.
That said,
most people do not need that.
I think that was promoted because they were trying to be really careful.
It got parroted on the internet, and it became like the golden standard. But absolutely. I would tell people, hey, you don't need that many carbs, and if you're that worried about it and you're going pre-workout, just carry some glucose tabs on you. If you start taking the deep dive, hop one, and then you could find, and most people found where they were taking half that many carbs in, and they were fine. Again, but if you have blood sugar problems and prior to that, especially people who have a long history of drinking, you might dance with the devil a little more. But yeah, carry a couple of glucose tabs, just start bringing it down a little bit. If you start to feeling a little shitty, then you got it right there in your bag or whatever. And I would say that I don't even remember what the recommended one was, but it was probably twice as much.
It was 10 grams per 1 unit.
Yeah,
exactly.
It's probably at least twice as much, if not a little bit more, for some people to know what they really needed.
Right.
How about should an endo avoid insulin?
For the most part, I say yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, unless you take that endo and you're really fucking lean. Because the other thing is how are you going to gauge whether you're gaining body fat? Are you going to go by the scale? You can't do that. Visually, the leaner you are, you're going to be able to see changes in your condition much better, or growth, not just body fat accumulation, but growth as well if you're leaner. So you're better off being leaner if you're going to use insulin. The other thing too is if you're going to approach insulin use with and we were just talking about this with the dosage, so I'll come back to it because there was 2-part and I don't want to go at it without the other part, so let me sit on it. Okay. And if we get off the topic, I'll come back later and I'll post it on the page, but there was another part that I got to come back to, so go ahead.
All right, we moving on? We can move on?
Yeah.
Okay.
Unless you have anything to add.
No. Does DECA really help with joints and tendons, or is this a myth? If so, how does it work to help with them, and the dosage that you all would recommend just for joint and tendons to go along with TRT?
So DECA, most people retain water on it because the kind of steroid it is. So when you have water in your joints, they're going to feel a little better. But I don't think DECA itself per se is any different than any other. So it's not the actual DECA. It may be the secondary result of water retention. But dude, I can tell you this: I used to have joint problems, took DECA, it didn't do shit for me. So I think sometimes it's psychological too.
Well, I know there's the collagen component and everything else, but I've also seen studies where it said that EQ is no more or less that it contributes almost very comparably to DECA when it comes to collagen. So I've never taken, I'm the same way you are, Scott, S2H. I mean, I've had joint problems on DECA. I've had joint problems on EQ or joint pain. I don't see that it has helped much. I've had clients say, I started 200 milligram or even 150 milligram a week, just added to their regular cycle, and that they felt like it helped them. I can't say that it didn't because I'm not them, but you do have to wonder, is there a placebo effect? Does it help? Does it just not help me? To what degree is the joint pain? Is it minor? I can't say definitively.
Yeah. And it's like growth. A lot of people say they get joint pain on growth. Growth helps my joint pain. So, I think it can be person dependent, but yeah, I think it's more placebo. That was the word I was looking for. I know people that have like, oh, my knees are killing me, and they take DECA for like a week, and they're like, oh, I'm all better. I'm like, Huh?
Well, and what's funny is I've taken, I've had knee pain in the past and used OTC supplement. How do you say it?
Baswala.
Thank you.
Baswala.
Baswala extract. And I mean, wipe it out like you're erasing chalk from a chalkboard.
Yeah.
And then run out of it. And a week and a half or 2 weeks after running out of it, going, oh, I'll get more. My fucking knees start hurting again. Get more and it goes away. And then I come back to it 2 years later and don't notice a damn thing.
I have something on my knee right now. I use these I don't use them all the time, but these little lidocaine patches the doctor gives me, man, these things work great. I put them on my lower back. I got one on the back of my knee right now because it gets real stiff when I run around a lot. And but you got to be careful with them because it's not just lidocaine there. I mean, there's no opioid or anything like that. They're just standard lidocaine, but they have some I forget what's in them. They have a couple minerals and they have some B-type vitamins and stuff. But if you wear them all the time, you'll start being kind of dark. So that's probably not a good thing. And they work pretty good.
Kind of dark. What do you mean?
Like your urine gets a little colored.
Oh, wow.
I'm looking at a study. I think I was going to talk about this with Dave Crossland, but they were basically concluding that nandrolone helps with joint pain. And there was a bunch of people reporting that it did help. But, I agree with you guys. I've heard it. And it does. It increases collagen synthesis, right? By some great total, 300% or something.
Some of the studies say, yeah.
Same with DECA. I mean, same with EQ, and same with Anavar. So
remember this too. Some of these studies, if you look into them, and I'm not saying all the DECA ones, and the EQ ones, I know a lot of them are. They're in horses, so they're in animals. They're not always in humans.
Yeah, this one that just came out was in humans. But yeah, I don't know.
The EQ ones are mostly on horses.
EQ. Yeah.
Yeah.
That Baswala,
equine.
that's in the J-Flex. It's one of the components
Okay.
of J-Flex from our sponsor, True Nutrition. Hey,
True Nutrition. Buy True Nutrition.
I'll use this as an opportunity to go back to my question about back. So, is there a difference between back width exercises and back thickness exercises? Because I've heard people say no, and it was Dave Pulcinella. It was like, they are all, and I'll do my best impression of Dave. They are all the same. If you're doing a pull down, it's not just working the width of your back; it's working your entire back. He'd say something like that.
He and I have argued. I'm with him. I say the same thing. I'll tell you why. I've tried to explain it as simply as possible. You can't get a muscle to grow in one direction. It grows in all different directions. You have your, what are you going to do? Are you going to do lat pulls only hit one area? They don't. You may feel it more there and everything, but the reality is that muscle has to grow in every fucking direction. It's not going to get just wider or just thicker. As you get thicker, and this is why I almost brought this up when you were talking about the thickness earlier. You said you were thicker but not wider. I'm not disagreeing with you in the sense that I'm not going to tell you didn't get wider, but if a muscle grows and you get thicker, you had to be wider.
What if it's just hitting your rhomboids?
May not.
Well, that's a lot of thickness because it's in the middle.
Right.
But it's not just. That's the thing. It's still hitting your entire back. There may be more focus in that area, but it also depends on how you do it. When you row, some people, when they do barbell rows, they don't open up their scapula. They stay tight in the stretched, what looks like the stretched position. I think a lot of it comes down to same thing with chins or lat pulls. Are you allowing your scapula to open? Those types of things will help to contribute to the range of motion of the scapula. Mine, I always laugh and say when I trained my wife, I hated it because her scapula, you would see them come out and they would open up on every rep. And mine, they just fucking don't move. It's like they're cemented or chained to my spine or something. From the stretched position, I don't even have that big round where the scapula come out. No, that doesn't happen. So I was looking at this early on going, my God, I've always had a relatively narrow back because I have narrow clavicles. So I have to come up with things that the average person doesn't to try to get more back width or my back to widen up. And that's when I started doing things like I'm thinking, wow, my back is growing, but I'm doing more rows. Wow, these pullovers are really helping. In my personal experience, pullovers have been more beneficial for me for upper back width than doing any lat pull or chin I've ever done in my life.
Okay, yeah.
And I am a stickler for form, so I'm making sure that it's full stretch, and I'm exaggerating the stretch using hammer, isolateral, one at a time, so I can stretch the shit out. Pullovers work twice as well for me. And especially when it comes to feel. That fucking area of my back pumps up so much, it's like, oh my God, I've never felt this wide. And then I look at myself in the mirror and go, you're not wide. So that's
a lot of it's structural, like you said, because, okay, if you take somebody like me, I'm pretty short, like all of us, but I got a pretty thick back. But if I stand next to somebody who's 6'5" and I'm 5'9", and they're broad-shouldered, clavicles are wide, they're going to have a wider back because they're structurally just a wider person via their structure. But that doesn't mean thickness, then you can, I think the thickness part you can train more than you can train, but the width part, you got what you got. I mean, the back grows, it gets a little bit wider, but look at Doran Yates, okay? Probably arguably one of the best backs in bodybuilding, okay? He's not super tall. Now, if you look at his back, he's got really, he had, or probably still, I mean, he's not as big now as he used to be, but, he has very thick rhomboids, and on I've met him, his height, he's taller than I am, but he's pretty broad structurally for a guy his height. So his back looks wider, or it is wider just based off his structure.
Yeah. For me,
there's other bodybuilders like that, but
For me, I've just had a hard time activating my lats. That the rhomboids have taken, I think, like a lot of the blunt of the load in a lot of my movements, and that the lats haven't activated as well. And that when you look at it, I'll show you pictures later, but when you look at it, to me, I'm seeing that the lats don't seem to have, filled out as much. And I'm not saying it's not, I don't know. I just whatever I'm doing, I'm not activating everything equally. I can
keep
tell
doing
you
that
much.
exercise you're talking about, down towards the navel.
Yeah, that's new.
Away from the body. My wife's, she's been training longer than Skip, and that's an exercise she's big on for her clients. Their back. A lot of people think they got to go wide with their hands to get their back wider.
Yeah.
And what's a great one is just chins. A narrow shoulder width chin.
Yeah.
Works well.
I said before, will continue to say, the shoulder width is better for range of motion than going too wide. And it didn't help when Arnold used to espouse the wide grip for a wide back.
He was wide.
But it would help pull your scapula apart if your scapula were made to come apart like that and round out, and you'd have the scapula coming out to the side, sure. But still, that limits the range of motion. So the other argument that I have is this. When we say that we want to develop lats, I mean, let's just take it literally and specifically to, if you're going to really work on your lats, how much is that, the lat itself, going to make your back wider under the armpit? Think about it. The lats aren't on the top of the back. You're not really widening. When you go for width, where do you look at the back? You look at it below, basically around the shoulder blade, below the rear delt, under the armpit. You don't look at the lat itself. Lat development really doesn't add a ton, not the movements. The movements may help, but the actual lat development really doesn't widen the back where we all look for a wide back. Up around the shoulder blades, below and around the armpit. So, you know what I mean? It's just, it's kind of food for thought.
And also, I'd say that for appearance-wise, for a wider back, you have to have pretty good rear deltoids. A good rounded rear deltoid will give you a better appearance from the rear than if you have shallow rear deltoids or not as good development.
I agree with that, but that's where it comes back to total back development.
Yeah.
If you have, do you ever see someone with really thick rhomboids, but then you may see them with weak lats, but they're not typically
powerlifters,
not wide. They're fucking wide. The more, if you grow your rhomboids and your middle traps big, it's almost like and I mean, I'm oversimplifying, but from a visual standpoint, it's almost like it pushes everything else out wider from there.
Yeah.
Is Dusty known for doing lat pulls and chins? No. He's known for doing deads and fucking heavy ass rows. And I am sorry, but if you have never seen that guy's back from the back,
He got an
with that
incredible back.
fucking weight, it's incredible.
Yeah.
And it's not like when he started, you went, yeah, he's gonna have an enormous mass fucking back. No, you didn't look at it from like that from a structural standpoint.
Yeah.
But he also uses pretty good form too, even with a lot of weight. He doesn't get flying himself all over the place, throwing his hips and everything.
Right.
He stays pretty solid in his form, and that's important because a lot of people when they do bent over rows and they get heavy, man, they are throwing themselves. It looks like a slinky going back and forth.
Now I've seen him start to get loose on his heavier ones, like when he was rowing 500 pounds a week ago, and there were more than a couple people who said, "Oh my goodness, those aren't very tight." They're 500-pound rows, for fuck's sake. And if you take him over time, or you go back 2 weeks, he was doing them with 450 or 425, and they were rock solid and picture perfect. So, him breaking form every now and then to get another 50 pounds on the bar, and then standing up without putting the weight down to get a couple breaths, how you breathe holding 500 pounds still in your hands, and bend over and do a couple more partials, I'm going to clap for you, motherfucker, because that is some intense shit.
Yeah.
I'm not going to go, well, he was kind of herky-jerky a little.
Yeah, you moved your hips. The key with it is not moving your hips forward too much. You don't want to just pump your hips forward and back, and that's where a lot of people get injury problems. They start sliding their hips underneath them like a squat, and then they push them back out when they bring the weight up.
Yeah, if you're going to drive, if you're using hip drive or leg drive, okay, great. I'm not going to take anything. Okay, good for you.
All right, let's not get too far off topic there. But I think it's just that my lats haven't gotten the same level of development that the inner back had. But I do think that new pull down I'm doing has made, because I feel it now. I feel it in a way that I hadn't felt it before. And it's gotten better. It's gotten better over the last few years but see, that's what I'm saying though. I feel like, so to me, it's like I'm working on an exercise. I do feel like if the rhomboids they push out, my lower back looks thick. Like I've got a really thick lower back, but then the sides just didn't match that. So I do feel like
you're doing good, man. I look at your pictures on Instagram. Like, is this the same guy I've known for so many years? Have you seen him? He's got the perfect little quarter turn. He's standing in pictures. I was looking at, he had some pictures the other day. I'm like, Jesus, he's like 50 pounds heavy. I mean, not like I fought ogle over his pictures, but I look occasionally and I'm like, this guy's like growing, man. And I'm like, he's standing next to big dudes that I know are big, and it's like, fuck, McNally's as big as they are, if not bigger than some. But I think he's got that little quarter turn figured out.
I was telling Scott before the show, I try to not out angle people now. My goal is to let them take the angle, because I don't even want to be, you know what I mean? But that's a whole. That's yet another topic. That's yet another.
As long as you pull the knee up and you go on your toe or on the balls of your foot, like a figure competitor.
Oh yeah.
Then you're good. You're fine.
Oh, he's got it figured out. I asked him if he was studying it in the mirror. He was, I didn't do that.
I got all defensive, and I was like, no, I'd never do that.
I take a picture, I stick my face out so I look thinner.
Take that high angle looking down. Yeah, selfies from the top. Yeah.
My neck's out like this.
All right, what else do we have left here? Oh, I have several female clients that have loose skin through their midsections post childbirth. Some have had it for years, even through dieting and training. Any advices? And I asked, I was like, are these people competitors? Have they gotten into contest shape and still have it? And he said, no, they're basically housewives.
I actually had this conversation not too long ago with somebody. There's surgical procedures. I actually have had a couple clients who were males that were really heavy that had it done. The light, what's it called? It's a laser treatment. And it actually worked pretty good. Now, it's super expensive. You have to do multiple treatments. And I apologize, I don't remember the exact name of it. But I was pretty surprised. It worked pretty good. But outside of surgery, I would say stay lean. I mean, sometimes if you just stay lean, your skin will naturally start to tighten up. I mean, I remember, y'all remember back in the day with all the creams and all put the waist, what were those old, the neoprene bands around your waist and everything.
They still sell them.
I tried all that stuff. I don't think that shit works. Maybe temporary, like, the hemorrhoid creams and all that stuff. Maybe it helps like that day, but I don't see long-term benefit to a lot of that.
Yeah, I'm not going to disagree with that. I think staying lean, it's funny, that's where I was going to go. If you get lean and you have loose skin, stay lean. And that will allow a lot of times, the large majority of the time, the skin to kind of catch up. The elasticity as we get older the elasticity of the skin isn't what it was when we were younger, so it does take longer. A lot of times the skin will catch up. It may not catch up 100%, but maybe it'll catch up 80%, and that's better. If you constantly are getting lean and fat, and I've talked about this before on the show, it's like a rubber band that you continue to stretch, and it will lose its elasticity over time. If you stay lean, if you get lean, you have loose skin, and you stay lean, and you basically still have loose skin, outside of surgery, or having some type of, because there are advancements in technology now, like S2H is talking about. I know there's this cold one where they freeze shit. And there's
the cold one.
Yeah, there is a lot of promise there. There actually is. At first I scoffed at it because I thought, it's just another one of these or several $1,000 procedures that are going to, make 10% difference, and it's really not going to matter. That people are going to rave about. But this one actually does have some promise. I've had 2 clients who have used it, and god damn,
it's working, huh?
I was pretty impressed. Yeah, I was pretty impressed.
I'll send you guys some picture of a guy that had it done as a client of mine, and he was really big, and he had a really bad, especially below the navel, like the sag skin over. He had it done, competed and won his class, and it was gone. I mean, it was almost amazing.
No kidding.
It was like, wow. It was, he looked like his abs were just flat with veins. And he went from that with, the rolls below the navel from the skin. And I was like, holy shit, that did work.
Yeah. And when I say it's a few thousand, it's not a few thousand, it's several $1,000s.
It's a lot of money.
It's a very costly procedure. So for the large majority of people, I think it would probably be out of their wheelhouse. Yeah. Wow. I thought, if I remember right, because it has to be done a couple times.
Yeah.
It was significantly more than a boob job.
Yeah. Okay. Wow.
A good
expensive
job. A good boob job.
I'll throw out the whole self-acceptance aspect of it. I'll go that route just to throw it out there that, because I feel like I've seen it happen where somebody has something they can't change and then they get really depressed. They're like, oh shit, I've got this loose skin, so no matter what I do, I'm never going to be perfect. And I think that the reality is that no matter what you do, you're never going to be perfect, whether you have loose skin or have some, you know what I mean? Like there's always going to be something, especially if you're like a middle-aged housewife, that it's like be the best you that you can be. We need like some sort of uplifting music playing behind me as I say that, but
yeah, it's not working.
Yeah. You know what I mean though? Like I know we're a bodybuilding podcast. And at the end of the day, if there's a tool that we can use, then I want to hear about it, and that somebody may want to use that. At the same time, if that's not an option, if you can't afford that, or if it doesn't work, there's that too. I mean, self-acceptance is it. At the end of the day, we have to have it. You know what I mean? Like we have to have it. So
I don't care.
Yeah.
But I say this, if you feel bad about it, come see me. I'll take my shirt off next to you, and you'll feel a hell of a lot better about yourself. and in the end, beauty is but a light switch away.
It'll be a lot cheaper. It'll be a lot cheaper to pay for the visit to come see you.
I got 9-inch scars. I got holes in me. I got all kinds of stuff. Yeah. Fat, everything. It all goes together.
That's
I got
funny.
one of those big scars with fat on each side of it.
In the feed, Eric replied to me and he said, nah, housewives. And after that, Nags said, I'm here for the housewives.
The MILF hunter.
He is.
Blood, sweat, and beer MILF hunter. Yeah.
That is shit.
All right, let me see what else we have here. I think we had one in the feed.
Good job, Nags.
I'll go over to the feed here if I could find that one. I got to scroll right back, all the way back up, because we've had a lot of people commenting too here. It had to do with TRT and something to do with blood. Let me see. You guys talk amongst yourselves as I look for this.
As you look,
I just had mine redone because I had to switch.
Got it.
I You know how those doctor places, you have one doctor and then all of a sudden the dude disappears and they give you another guy in the same practice?
Yeah.
So this guy tells me, I don't know, a month ago, he's like, no, we need you to come in for your injections. I'm like, bro,
you know who I
said,
am?
I've injected
I'm S2H.
myself more than everybody in your clinics ever injected anybody probably. I'm not coming in, and he's like, well, we have to have you come in to monitor it. Well, I'm not doing it. So I switched to this, one of those TRT places, a local one, and I went and got my labs done, and they were okay. I would say they weren't as bad as I've ever been, but they were probably the little high column had a few highs in it going down. So I'm actually going to start back tomorrow with my wife. We're going to start training together. So I'm gonna try to have to straighten a few things out.
Well, hopefully if she's training you, then you'll be good.
Oh, she'll kill me, dude. She trained me for a show once. She was doing she was responsible because my coach was her coach too, and she was responsible for my ab core workout. Oh, dude, that's why I don't like abs and core. She's like, come on, like drill sergeant, like over me, just lacking the Smokey Bear hat to beat on my forehead. Yeah.
Did you find it?
I did, yeah.
All right.
Do you guys have any opinions on a TRT dose when on anticoagulants after a DVT and clots in the lungs post COVID-19?
Yeah, I'm not going
there. Doctor.
Yep, it's not. It's out of my wheelhouse.
Yeah, I wonder.
I have a small opinion, but I want to stay away from it. I think it's better to see your doctor.
Yeah, I mean, I wonder would there be a situation because I think of that guy who had the kidney issues that I was talking about. He was a rare case where they were like, no, we don't want you on TRT even. That was a rare case. I mean, obviously go to your doctor for this, but I wonder if this would be one of those situations.
Well, I mean, if he's on anticoagulants, then that means that he has a propensity to have viscous blood. So to go on TRT and potentially increase RBC, hematocrit, and hemoglobin, my conscience,
not a good idea.
Yeah, my conscience won't go there. I can't do that.
I'm not going to comment. That's tough.
I'd say don't do it. There's my advice. I'd be like, don't fucking do it, dude. And that's a hard one. I get it, but
we'll skip 100%.
When's the last time you went in to donate blood, Skip? Speaking of thick blood.
I am due in 2 weeks because it's 2 weeks before we leave to Colorado to go see the kids.
Okay. And how?
And they did whole blood because they were revamping. It's just down here. Yeah. It's one blood. They're like buses and they're red. And they were, because I normally do double red, and they were redoing all the double red machines or something. So I had to do whole blood. Otherwise, I wouldn't have to go back for a while.
Okay. Does that work?
Study on. Oh, go ahead.
Well, that's a good topic, actually, because we were just talking about that on the Intense Muscle, the expert panel. And there are studies that are saying that it could potentially contribute to higher numbers, because then the giving blood and lowering the numbers pushes the bone marrow to increase more, to kick out more red blood cells and that sort of thing.
That's what Dante warned me of when I was talking about doing it myself. He chimed in with that.
There is that. So we may be in the middle of a transition where the medical community, see, what you have is people who it does help, and it does help to keep their numbers under control. But for those who it doesn't work for, bloodletting or phlebotomizing or whatever the hell you want to call it, maybe bloodletting isn't the right word, but phlebotomizing, that they need to look at their situation. That may be what is happening. The body is compensating by kicking out even more red blood cells than it would if they were not to phlebotomize. A hard word to say several times in a row.
Phlebotomize. I just went in for the third or fourth month in a row, and I think I'm finally back down in range. A lot of people think that they donate a pint of blood and they're good. I've been doing over the normal amount that you can take every time for 4 months now, and I started at 56, and I believe this last time I was down at 51, and I just did it again this past week. It was a perfect draw. The time before, they used a word that it grosses me out. They couldn't get the vein, so they had to fish for it.
Oh, nice. Yeah. Yeah, that I don't know if I'd want to hear that term.
I'll do that to you.
Now, Scott Stevenson made some good points though in that discussion,
Yeah.
and if anybody wants to check it out, they can. It's on Intense Muscle. But he came back and he said, let's just say, and I'm paraphrasing, if you get your numbers lower by phlebotomizing, that does not erase the other like contraindications or issues that you have that are causing those numbers to be higher.
Sure.
You're in a sense artificially bringing down, okay, now you don't have the high RBC, hematocrit, and hemoglobin, but you still have the issues that are causing it to go up. And you might think, well, that's just steroid use.
AKA Anadrol.
Not necessarily. The other issues that come along with it, the other things that are going on in your body because those numbers are being pushed up. So the question becomes then, what benefit outside of just bringing those numbers down are we really getting? We're not getting all the side benefits because those issues that are causing it to go up are still there. They're happening because of the steroid use, which was a very good point that, I fancy myself a pretty bright guy, contrary to what S2H thinks. Yeah. And it occurred to me because I've dealt with blood issues for a long time. Yeah. And even though my blood is good now because I'm at sea level and things have been different, that didn't occur to me. I just was kind of locked into this. Well, as long as the numbers are low, then I'm good. It doesn't erase the original issues and the shit that's going on in your body that is causing those numbers to go up.
Yeah.
Well, there's some research that why women live longer than men, and because women menstruate, so they're losing blood, replenishing, and then so there's like some studies going on where. And, of course, they're not taking bodybuilders probably for this study. It's probably just normal people. And if men give blood so much, is that a reason that they're not, could live longer?
Well, one of the things with that is that with women menstruating and losing blood, they can purge heavy metals versus we don't have as much of an ability to do that. It just stays there, I think, longer term and, gets into the tissues and all that. I don't know. Obviously.
And injecting gear all the time, that helps with heavy metals, right?
Yeah, you got to keep your heavy metals down.
That UGL stuff has no metal in it.
Yeah.
I wonder about the underground growth.
I don't care.
Yeah.
Can't
turn a blind eye.
Live for the moment. Live for the moment.
Be huge,
Take trend. More trend.
Yeah. All right. Let's see. What else do we have here? I was not paying enough attention to think ahead to look over here to find the next question. Well, there was another one that was kind of a little bit more complex. Where was that? Oh, actually had two more here. Best finishing drug 1 week out. And also, does S2H look younger when he shaves?
Doubt it. Best finishing drug. Best finishing just be lean going into the last week and you'll be ready to go. I think he's probably referring to something, maybe throwing in halotestin or something like that, which I find to be kind of an old school thing that really doesn't benefit. I think along the line of this question is the idea, and the person who asked this question may not be thinking this, but this is what I'm thinking he's thinking, that when you put in a compound, you all of a sudden become harder. The only way that you're going to put in a compound that would make you harder is if it in some way shifts water or gets you leaner, and a compound isn't really going to get you leaner in a week or two anyways, outside, I'm talking about AAS. So halotestin and stuff like that, Masteron could, and anti-estrogen could, if you have higher levels of estrogen, and maybe that's making you hold water. But adding a compound in AAS, unless it's Masteron or something like that, really isn't going to. Shifting your compounds, I guess, maybe if you're shifting away from long esters that are more aromatizing to lower, possibly. But finishing by just adding something, add halotestin, you're not really going to. If you're not hard to begin with, you're not going to all of a sudden go, oh, wow, that was a great combination. I'm going to use that next time.
I didn't read the whole thing. He said it, assuming that you're already in shape.
Okay. Then just make sure that the compounds that you're on aren't aromatizing and that your estrogen is under control. But adding another compound probably isn't going to change some people will add anadrol in the last 48 hours.
Oh, yeah. What do you think of that?
That's
Super draw.
Yeah.
Super draw works the best.
It probably would. It probably would. But are you really going to? Here's how I've always looked at this. If I've done everything right and I'm in good condition and I'm hard anyway and I'm ready to go, I'm not going to take a gamble on something that might give me 1%, that might not even make a visual change anyway. And then the risk or the gamble is that it could completely fuck up shit and make me hold water. It's a hell of a gamble to steal from Top Gun. It's a hell of a gamble. Let me finish. It's a hell of a gamble with a $30 million plane, Lieutenant. There, now you can go.
I've seen Super Draw work pretty good the last 2 days. Not taking it the whole week, but Anadrol too. But Super Draw, it does push water into the muscle. I've seen some. I mean, like you said, it's not going to. Are you going to be like you go from last place to first place? No. But maybe it's that. I would give it more than 1%, but it can work for some people, make you harder.
It can.
More intermuscular water. I don't think it's really going to move a ton of water like you think it will. It just keeps that, the nitrogen retention, everything into the muscle. So it can work.
There are other variables, like let's say, are you still trying to move water? Are you still watery from a load? Have you loaded yet? Are you going to take it at exactly? Are you going to take it at the same time that you load? And there are a million different ways to load. So there are other factors in there. I'm not saying not doing it. And I'm not saying that it hasn't made where people have thought, okay, yeah, that worked pretty good. But I'm just saying it is a hell of a gamble at the last minute.
Try it like 4 or 5 weeks out first.
Sure, even 2 or 3, 2 weeks. Try it the weekend before. See what happens.
Yeah.
But make sure that your other variables are constant too. Like either you just loaded and you're going to load right before the show. When you do a trial run on something, you need to have those variables, as many of those variables as possible, to be exactly the same that you're going to be doing prior to the show. So if you're going to do a trial run, but you're not going to control your water or move your water or load, or it's not going to be, then don't even bother fucking experimenting with it. Because if the variables aren't going to be the same, then it's very unlikely that you're going to have the same outcome.
Skip, do you ever manipulate water for a trial, like a mock trial run with water?
Always.
Yeah.
If it's going to be something within the last 48 hours or so, or 24 hours, always. And that's the bitch of it, because everybody thinks, oh, it's just a trial run, it's no big deal. No, it really isn't. It's going to impact your training either that day or the next day too, because if you're moving water and shifting water, then you better be careful during that training session too. You may even have to train on very limited water intake. So then you're training in a situation where you're sweating at the same time that you're limiting water. So it could become a dehydration. And if for those who don't know, even a 1% reduction in hydration will impact not only your training, but contractile force.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, I mean, there's a lot of things that you got to be very careful if you're doing these trials or experimentations correctly at the last minute. And at the last minute, I mean the last 2 or 3 weeks before a show.
You need to repeat the process exactly like you're going to do it.
Exactly. Yep.
With the Halo, I don't know how great it is, but I've used it for every show. I've said that before. And if I were to compete again, which if I can get to 240 this year and hold that, I might compete next year. We'll see.
Cool.
I'm close already.
I'm writing this down.
So are you going to use?
It's already written down. It's recorded.
Oh, that's right. I'm saving it.
Are you going to use the Halo test?
That's what I was getting at. I probably will. Yes. Yeah.
And I used it for a long time and then took it out because I wanted to see if it was going to be. I didn't notice any difference. So I had done what you did. I was like, well, it's supposed to be there, so I'm going to have it there. And I was happy with the results with everything together. And then I'm like, I don't know, maybe it doesn't make that big of a difference. And it's so hepatotoxic.
Yeah.
So I'm like, you know what? I'm going to leave it out. And I didn't notice a difference.
I think I'll run it low though. I've run it at various doses and I've gone up to, and I know people have used more, but for me, 40 was really high.
Ooh.
I ran
40 is high.
I ran 20. The first time I ran it was 10 the first week, 10, 10, 20. So for 3 weeks. And then I did 20, 30, 20, what was it? 20, 30, and then 40 like the last 3 days. and that was too much.
Your liver was hating you, and everybody around you was hating you.
Yeah, I didn't test my blood work. I didn't test my labs for a little while after that, like 8 weeks later, and things were, pretty much back to normal. But I wouldn't do that again. But if I were to do it again, I would probably contest prep on lower dose gear, but I would keep the test high, like, because I've experimented with taking the test lower, and I feel like I did lose, like I could have held more size if I had the test up higher. So I'm not going to say I'd use like crazy tests, but probably like, I don't even want to throw a dose out there because there might be new people listening and I say that's a low dose and it's really not.
8 grams.
Yeah, under a gram, we'll say that. For an advanced lifter user, for advanced drug user, in Master On, and then at the end, like 10 Halo for the last 10 days, maybe. I think I'd do that.
All right.
Okay.
Just, I don't know.
Are you 240?
Almost. No, I got a little ways. I got a little ways to go.
Big swole.
I got a ways to go. You'll know.
I'm 240, but it's not a good 240.
I'm not going to say who it is. Any of our listeners may assume, but there was a fighter who recently used Halo. I'm not going to throw any names out there. You guys don't know who this is, even if you watched a podcast we did with a fighter recently. But I feel like Halo makes more sense for a fighter, because like one of the things I like about it is the aggression that you get in the gym and the strength that you get in the gym, because it's great for strength. But if you're ramping that up, and like this is the last week of a show prep, like you're not really training that hard. You don't need it. You don't need to be able to lift a ton of weight in that last week. Right. You know what I mean? You're not lifting anymore. So that's one area where it doesn't make sense to me.
Halo's big in fight sports.
Yeah.
It's used a lot more than people know, because you're not going to really gain weight on it. So you have to make weight. It's not going to be a problem.
Yeah.
That's why a lot of them used to use Winstrol. Remember, the guys would fail Winstrol tests, and you're like, "What the hell are you using Winstrol for?" Well, it's probably not doing that much for them, but they're not gonna have trouble making weight.
All right. So one last one here. Recovery is so overlooked. My labs show high potassium, low sodium, which led to discovering that my HPTA axis is producing next to no aldosterone, and ACTH was less than 0.1, undetectable. Cortisol and DHEA is still okay, but I feel like complete shit and am lethargic all the time. That said, any thoughts other than eat loads of sea salt to help recover adrenal function? I feel this is more common in competitive physique athletes than many people would think.
Yeah, he's probably overtrained.
Yeah?
Yep.
I'd say agree with Skip, unless he's taking some kind of SSRI or something that can cause that. But, overtrained.
No kidding. That's not something you can really come back from in a day, is it?
No, but I mean, he could make huge strides if he didn't train for a week.
Yeah?
Yeah, and this is assuming that he's overtrained.
Yeah.
The other thing is, a lot of people, it's that analogy of the frog in the boiling water versus, sitting in the water and then turning it on and bringing the boiling temperature up to boiling. You can't, a lot of times you don't notice that you're in an overtrained state. If he probably were to sit there and analyze and go down the list of things, he would probably then go, okay, maybe I'm overtrained. So if that's the case, if he's truly overtrained, then it is. It's make sure that you sleep, don't train for a week, and then get back into it and slowly come back over the next week or two. And I say maybe a week isn't enough. It depends on really how bad it is, but he probably is overtrained to some degree. How much, how little, don't know.
So, when you overtrain, a lot of times you don't get good sleep. You don't sleep well.
Right.
Narcolepsy can come in, and those combination that's like the second tell that you can have those problems. So,
well, narcolepsy is a little extreme, but I'd go with insomnia first.
Insomnia. I got bang-elepsy.
Yeah, I don't think we said that on the show. Scott drank a bang for the first time, and it was like 7:00 at night. So Oh, second
So if
time
anybody
ever.
thinks, wow, S2H has a personality, we're going to make sure that he has a bang. I'm going to send him a case of bang so he can have a bang every
It's
episode.
wearing off, though. I can tell
Five,
you
but
that.
yeah, it is. You're coming down a little bit. But before we push the button, holy shit, we got to get that button pushed sooner.
Oh, Tanya asks, what's the SSRI interaction, and how should she be how should she be proactively act against that?
Well, here's what I'm saying about SSRIs, and this is coming from a lot of experience with the VA, and they give them to people who don't need them.
Yeah.
So, if you have normal serotonin and dopamine release and uptake, and then you introduce SSRIs or SSREs, it starts to interfere with that. And so that's a lot of times where problems can occur when, not to get too much on a tangent, but if your doctor wants to give you an SSRI or an SSRE, I'd really make sure you're getting a good evaluation, because that's a trickle down effect to, hormones and HPTA and thyroid function and other things can be really affected by that. So I think if you just go in and someone says, I'm having a bad day, and they're like, oh, here's some, SSRIs, you may want to rethink that process.
I think she posted in the group before about having, I think I think it was like anxiety or panic stuff going on, that, she was pretty confident that she was using what she needed to be, but I don't know. I know for me, I feel like I had depression when I was younger, and it was something that would, like, it was like a longer term thing. And then going on to TRT, it went away. Like I never felt it again.
Because your test might have been low.
I don't know. I never had it tested before I'd used gear, but I do wonder. I mean, that causes depression, right? But doctors, I can tell you that I was treated with SSRIs for years for depression, and on and off, and they never even looked at my test levels. They never thought to, know.
No. Yeah, so. It's tough. I think it's more challenging to get really good treatment and advice on some of those things. I don't think they look at a full 360 picture a lot of times.
Yeah. So Skip, what's up with your training now with everything? Because I know your back, your hips doing better, and
I just got cleared yesterday. So
and you were getting ready for a show, and now like what's your plan now?
My plan now is I have to do something with these legs. I'm still down a couple inches from my chronic back shit that went on for so long. But you know what? I'm going to be sitting here and I'm going to be honest and transparent and say, you know what? It's been 4 years since I've had 4.5, since I've had a major back injury.
Yeah.
I should be training legs heavier than I am. So I'm going to have to, and this cutting phase really opened my eyes to that, because remember, I wasn't doing any cardio.
Yeah.
So my legs, when I looked at my legs, I thought to myself, man, they're not getting eaten up by cardio. They're just not big enough.
Damn.
And then it kind of hit me. I'm like, wow, I'm still scared to go balls out with the, and train heavier. So my focus over the next year is going to be to, obviously I'll stay lean because I just relatively lean, but I'm going to really, my focus is 100% is on bringing my legs up. So I got 4 weeks before we go see the kids, and I'm going to break back into doing, because I've been able to train legs, but it's just been very limited to be careful of my hip.
Yeah.
Now I still have to be careful, but I'm going to do some, more glute, not dominant, but glute work, like squatting and getting back into leg pressing stuff, breaking in slowly. And then when I come back from Colorado and seeing the kids, then I'm going to step on the gas again, because I'm TRT now, and I'm going to grow these motherfuckers and try to compartmentalize the lower back, the history of my lower back injury. Still be smart, but still compartmentalize in the sense that I really have to be able to try to shelf this fear of another injury, or I'm just not going to hit my legs the way I want, and they're not going to be where I want them to be.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that's where I am right now.
I was curious, man. I'd love to get some leg training in with you at some point. I'm not overly strong, man, but I'm pretty good at legs. I feel like I get it. I mean, I'm not one. It's not like if we got together, I'd be like, dude, we got to put 6 plates on the bar. You know what I mean?
Right.
But how long does your leg workout usually take? Like a good leg workout. How long is that workout, and about how many working sets are you doing?
I'm probably doing. Well, I always do calves and then quads and hams, but I always have to stretch first. So that takes up 20, 25 minutes there just for stretching. And that's because of the history of my lower back problems. But, it probably takes me, it's a couple hours to train legs.
That's including the stretching.
No, not usually.
Okay.
It's coming up on, it's coming up on a couple hours. The other thing that takes a long time too is actually warming up. My knees hurt. So once I get them warm, we're talking 3 or 4 sets of light extensions, 3 or 4 sets of light curls. And then when I get into my first movement, let's say I'm going to do hacks. Yeah. There's a set with no weight. There's a set with 45s. There might be 2 sets of 45s if my knees are hurting me. Then I'm going up by quarters, just warming up until I get to my top set, and then I'm counting them. There may be 4 or 5 warm-ups on that first compound exercise, and then I can roll out at what I think is 100%. I'm still training them pretty intensely, but I'm not putting the weight, the resistance, because in the back of my mind, I feel like this could be the day. I always train legs with the anxiety of this could be the day. This could be the day. And it's a very unnerving, it takes the enjoyment out of training legs. The only time I enjoy training legs, I'm being completely honest, is as soon as I'm done.
Do you talk when you train? Do you talk to people when you train?
Nope. No. Now, in between sets, if someone approaches me or something, I'm never an asshole, but I'm not going to carry on a conversation or start a conversation when I'm training. But I'm always nice to people.
And how often do you train legs then?
Once a week.
Okay.
And I have to factor that in too to decide, am I going to go on a rotation that increases the frequency from 7 days to 5 days? Yeah. Because that's going to be my priority.
That helped me. That helped me big time.
The problem that I have is I want to train when I focus on a muscle group and it's a priority. I go 100% balls out, and I end up with an intensity that makes recovering and being able to train it again effectively and actually progress in 5 days very difficult to do. So if I'm going to train it more frequently, then I have to be able to pull the reins in a little bit. And not necessarily not train intensely, but
of course not.
The volume and everything else, then I have to be able to pull that back. And it's a balancing act, as you know.
Yeah.
When do you train back?
I train
in relation
back
to your leg day.
Usually 3 days before legs. So I'll train back on Tuesday. I'll have a rest day on Wednesday. Then I train arms on Thursday and then legs on Friday. Then I have 2 days.
Have you ever tried splitting your leg workout and your back workout as far away as possible?
I've actually tried to go with my back workout more posterior chain, where I train calves, hamstrings, and back. But the problem is it has to be in the order I want it, in the order of back first, and then hamstrings, and then calves, because of the priority. My calves are pretty damn good. My hamstrings are pretty good. When I bring up my legs, I have to bring up my hamstrings too, but it's predominantly a quad issue. I can tell visually from the front, my quads just aren't. They just aren't what, and all I have to do is go back to videos, back when I lived in Evergreen and was competing around, 2010, 2012. And that's the biggest change. I've actually improved my upper body, not dramatically, but I've improved it since then.
Nice.
But not my legs. And it's very disheartening.
I would think maybe if you put your legs very first in the week and the back at the end.
Yep, but back is still a priority too. If I was going to push something to the end of the workout or end of the week, it would be more like arms or chest, that sort of thing. But if I train legs first, and this is another thing that I have to factor in. Remember, I have this long history of these back injuries. If I do that when I'm still loaded, like coming off of a load, and I still have a little bit of distension, it potentially makes the pump in my lower back more more bothersome. I'm tighter. So I was thinking about moving them to Tuesday or Wednesday, and then again on maybe even Friday or Saturday. I thought about, again, splitting the hamstrings and quads, but that isn't going to help me a whole lot. It's just trying to find that right, that perfect combination, and there really isn't a perfect one. It's what is the best one? That sort of shit.
Yeah, my curiosity was if you were training back and legs, back to back to each other, which you're not.
Right.
So I would say you could split them farther apart, but it sounds like you're about as far apart as you can get anyway.
Yeah. Yeah. So it's just, I've even thought, well, maybe I'll train them 3 times a week. That would force me to take my volume really low. Yeah. Maybe I only would do 2 or 3 working sets, or 1 working set for 3 exercises, and do that 3 days a week.
Even 2 times. Even two times a week is going to really make you take it down.
But then factor in
train quads only.
That warm up. Then as soon as I double my leg training, the warm up time. So then it becomes a time issue, and then I'm thinking, damn. Then I'd have all that, and I still would need to stretch prior to, because as long as I have stretched prior to training, I have not had a back injury. So
can you walk to the gym?
Well, I can now, but we have big things going on this week with my better half's career, so there may be big changes there. But right now I can't. I could, but I'm not going to.
It's close enough you could walk reasonably.
Yeah, but I go to the gym early in the day now because remember I started training one-on-one clients now, so I do one-on-one training. I get there sometimes 2:30 or 3,
and let's face
I don't train until 9.
Skip's not walking anywhere. Let's just face that.
I'm not walking anyway. No, if I'm not driving, I'm taking a fucking Uber.
Drive a Kia over there.
Plus, you'd have to walk home. You'd have to walk home after training legs too. So there's that.
Crawl.
Yep. Now, standing up, being on my feet for 4 or 5 sessions, that can, after a while, my back will start to get a little stiff. It's not painful. It's not anything that stretching, it doesn't help. It helps it. But I know I am stiff a little bit after being on my feet for that, because I'm not used to being on my feet that long. You got to understand. I sit on my fat ass and fucking work behind a computer. I'm on my feet to walk to my car, to go to the grocery store, get groceries, come home.
Yeah.
I'm not on my feet for that length of time, so it's only been a couple months that I've been doing that now.
Yeah, I found it for me. It was I really did start pulling that volume back. It helps with my growth too overall, because I train everything about every 4 to 5 days now, and I have to pull that back. I only do maybe 2 exercises for chest. And because I combine other stuff with it too, like chest and shoulders and triceps, it's like, well, I have to get all this other stuff done while I'm here. So, 2 exercises and then I'm ready to train. So yeah, we'll see. Because I
whatever you're doing, it's working. So just keep doing it.
I feel like exactly. I wish I would have figured it out sooner, and I owe some of it. I owe some of it to everybody that I'm podcasting with, including you guys. I do.
I was actually kidding. I didn't know.
I was going to say that.
I'm getting emotional.
Yeah,
but Scott Stevenson was the one who was telling, he said it he's probably said it directly to me on the shows, but that, for a guy who doesn't have the greatest genetics, you may be able to get more growth factors, like trigger growth more often. A guy, all the guys in the 90s, they were all doing the 1 time a week thing. I did that for years and years, and it took me so far. But maybe my body needs to be triggered more often, get those growth factors kicking, more often. So yeah, I try to hit it as many times as I can. But it's tough to change too. That's the other thing, because I used to do a 3-hour leg workout. And you said you're going on 2. It's tough to break that and be like, okay, I'm just going to get in there and I'm only going to hit 3 exercises and I'm going to be out of here in an hour tops,
Right, exactly.
So.
Plus, I train my clients Monday, Tuesdays, Thursdays, Fridays. So I like to train on those days, because then the days that I don't have clients, I don't have to train either. Yeah. I don't have to be in the gym at all. It is a nice thing. So then I get locked in, or want to be locked into training on those 4 days.
Sure.
And then I'm trying to figure it out in my head with those 4 days. I'm like, you might actually have to change your training schedule. But, there are things that I got to get figured out. I got about 5 weeks to do it. So
right on. Anything else while we're here, guys?
Nope.
All right. In that case, for another episode of Blood, Sweat, and Gear with Skip Hill and S2H, head on over to our sponsor, TrueNutrition.com, and use our code ADVICES. And of course, visit Skip at TeamSkip.com, where skin is overrated. Did I do that right?
You did it.
All right.
Shut up, Scott.
See you guys.